everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today is unfortunately the last day. We shall be reading from High School Musical, Stories from East High, Volume 3, Poetry Emotion, written by Alice Alfonsi. I don't want to straight up, steal her book, so I think, 3 chapters is enough to get you enticed. Set up the plot. I'll leave a link if I can find any other way you can buy this book or borrow it. And if you live in Brisbane, I shall leave this book in the community library at the Kelvin Grove Village, near the Woolworths. Yes. So, if you're okay with hearing some cars and crows in the background, are you ready to be read to? You are? Well then, let's dive into chapter 3. Our last time reading this book together. Chapter 3. I'm really looking forward to practice today, Troy told Gabriella after school. They were walking side by side towards the gymnasium. A couple of 100 layup shots might make me feel better. Since he'd failed to convince Miss Barrington to change the assignment, he had to think of another way to help his friends. He was about to ask Gabriella for advice when she tapped him on the shoulder. "Troy," she whispered, pointing down the hall. "Look." Outside the gym doors, Chad, Zeke, and Jason were huddled together in a circle of misery. Chad was frowning, Zeke was groaning, and Jason was shaking his head. "They must be talking about the poetry assignment," Troy whispered to Gabriella. "This is my first chance to talk to them all together. Come with me, okay?" "Sure," she told him. Troy walked up to his teammates. "What's up, guys?" Jason frowned. "You know what's up." Chad nodded. "That stupid assignment from Miss Barrington's class. I can whip up a batch of flaky croissants or a perfect souffle like that. But putting words together? Man, that's just not my thing," groaned Zeke. "And did you hear the afternoon announcements?" Jason said. "Barrington's making this whole thing a contest, which means our poems are going to be judged in front of the entire school." Chad turned to Troy. "I was telling them my idea. We could all say we have writer's block or something. What do you think?" "Group writer's block," Troy said. "It's not going to work. And I'll tell you why. I already talked to Miss Barrington." Troy told the guys how he had gone to bat for them. "She refuses to accept any excuse. We all have to do this assignment or we're cooked. We'll end up with rotten semester grades and then we'll be off the team," Chad said. He shook his head and sighed. "Man, I hate to say it, but you're right. Getting kicked off the team would be worse than anything." "Listen, none of you are going to fail," Troy insisted. "You just need to get your heads in the zone. You can do it. All of you can." The guys stared at him. "Really?" Chad asked. "How?" Troy froze. He hadn't exactly figured out the next step yet. But he was the team captain, and the guys were looking at him, counting on him. Desperate, he turned to the girl standing behind him. "Gabriella's great at poetry," he declared. "She'll help you." Gabriella's eyes widened. "Me?" Troy saw her deer in the headlights look and dragged her into the huddle. "Come on, you don't want to see these dudes fail, do you?" Gabriella shook her head. "No, of course not. Well, said Troy, all you have to do is teach them how to write a really good poem. Gabriella pulled Troy aside. I don't know if I can do that, she whispered. Sure you can, Troy replied. You're an honest student. You get top grades in everything, including English. If anyone can help these guys, you can. Gabriella looked up. 4 pairs of desperate eyes are staring at her. Whoa, she thought. Talk about pressure. Are you going to help us? Zeke asked. Gabriella swallowed uneasily. She couldn't let them down. Let's meet at Bob's Burgers after practice, she told them. Then we can get started. Bob's Burgers, Jason said in horror. Are you crazy? No way, Zeke agreed. You're not helping us write poetry in public, Chad hissed. Okay, Gabriella said with a sigh. How about my house then? 8 o'clock. Is that private enough for you? Sun's down by 8, right? Whispered Chad to his friends. Zeke and Jason nodded. Okay, he said. We're there. The early evening desert sky was purple and sprinkled with stars. But away from the glow of the streetlight, Troy, Chad, Zeke, and Jason moved in shadow. All clear? Chad asked beneath the dark blue hood. His eyes scanned the seemingly empty suburban street. Jason peered from behind a bush. Clear. All clear, agreed Zeke, emerging from behind a tree. Troy sighed as he stepped around a parked car. Chad, don't you think you're overreacting? I didn't see anyone from the school paper on our trail. Oh no, Chad warned. You never actually see them. You just see a totally embarrassing picture of yourself on the front page of the school paper the next day. But what we're doing is no big deal, Troy insisted. Dude, Chad said, consider the caption. After their hard-driving practice, East's starting players get together for an evening of writing poetry at Gabriela Montez's house. Troy frowned. I see what you mean. It would be even worse than the last time I got my picture in the paper, Chad pointed out. You mean when you lost that pizza eating contest to a grade 6 girl? Jason asked. Chad groaned. I really didn't need to have that documented in print. Not with the sauce all over my face and pepperoni stuck in my hair. And that little girl holding the pizza trophy over your head? Zeke laughed. But you have to admit, the pepperoni in your hair was funny. Chad shook his head. I'll never eat pizza again. Okay, you win, said Troy. Let's move. But keep low. The team raced across the lawn to the front porch. Troy knocked quietly. When no one answered, he knocked again, just a little louder. Finally, the door opened. Gabriela's mother saw them and smiled. I thought someone knocked, but you were so quiet. I hardly heard you, she loudly declared. Are you all here for your poetry lesson? Shh, shh, shh. The boys hissed in unison. Sorry, Miss Montez said, lowering her voice. Come on in. Gabriella greeted them and led the boys to the living room. She had borrowed her mum's kitchen blackboard and had written a lot of notes about different types of poetry and rhyming styles. Gabriella didn't know if the notes would help. Mostly she hoped the classroom atmosphere would help the boys focus. Instead, they groaned when they saw the blackboard. Not a good start. Gabriella thought, and she began to wonder if she could really help them. If this was maths or science, she could teach them hard facts, no problem. But poetry was like music. You could teach someone notes on a musical scale, but playing well was more than putting notes together. You had to have a feel for it. While everyone had feelings, no two people were alike emotionally. Okay, let's forget the blackboard, Gabriella said as the boys settled on the sofa. She heard their relieved sighs. Basically, poetry is a picture you paint with words, she began. So let's start by visualizing a picture. Close your eyes and imagine you're in a colorful garden full of flowers and trees. Troy closed his eyes and leaned back. Chad did the same. Reluctantly, Jason and Zeke also closed their eyes. Okay, Gabriella continued. Do you have a picture of a garden in your mind? The boys nodded. Good, good. Now start describing the amazing things you see. Gabriella expected to hear about pastel flower petals and dappled sunlight. Eyes still closed, Chad spoke first. Bugs, he announced. I see bugs. Yeah, Zeke cried. Really gross ones with 18 legs. And snakes, said Chad. Really cool snakes, like copperheads and rattlers. Awesome, said Troy. I see a slimy slug. He's puffy and round and pink, and he's leaving a slime trail across a flower that looks kind of silver in the sun. Deep, said Jason. You know, I once saw a praying mantis eat an ant. Do you think that image would make for a good poem? Gabriella shuddered. The boys were choosing fairly disgusting images. But hey, she thought, these are their poems, not mine. Okay, she said gamely. Open your eyes. Now each of you write a poem that reflects the picture you saw in your mind. She passed out paper and pencils, and soon the boys were scribbling. Gabriella waited 10 minutes. Then she asked them to read what they wrote. Troy went first. The slug crawled across a flower of orange and left a trail of silver. Go on, said Gabriella. That's as far as I got, Troy replied. I couldn't think of any words that rhymed with orange or silver. Gabriella frowned. Troy had actually picked the only 2 words in the English language that didn't have exact rhymes. What were the odds? She tried to stay positive. It's okay, Troy. You know, poems don't always have to rhyme. Shifting her gaze to Jason, she asked him to read. He nodded and began. The praying mantis was munching away. He made the ant his meal today. The poor little ant gave all he got. Under his shell, his guts look like snot. That's enough, Gabriella cried. She shuddered, then cleared her throat. What did you write, Zeke? Little bug with 18 legs. If they got cut off, you'd be walking on pegs. Oh, wow, Gabriella thought. They're just getting worse. Chad, you're next, she hesitantly said, gritting her teeth. But Chad just shook his head. I tried to write a poem about snakes, copperheads, rattlers, maybe even a boa constrictor. Then I got to thinking about that constrictor play North Central tried on us a few weeks ago. That was killer, Zeke agreed. They had me so boxed in I couldn't move, couldn't even pass the ball. Jason moaned. They had my head so messed up I got whistled 3 times for traveling. Guys, Gabriella cried in frustration. No basketball. Chad rolled his eyes. Come on, Teach, he teased. Loosen up. Troy stood up. I'm totally backing Gabriella on this, he said. Right now, it's poetry time, not basketball time. Chad shook his head. We know basketball. That's easy to talk about. Poetry is still a mystery. Well, if you want to keep playing basketball, it's a mystery you better solve, Troy replied. So let's get our heads out of the game and into poetry. I've already started my poem for Miss Barrington. You have? What are you writing? Zeke asked. Troy shrugged. It's right here in my notebook. But what is it? What is it about? Jason asked. Yeah, I'd like to know, said Chad. Gabriella spoke up. I'd like to know too. It might help us all. But Troy looked away. He actually blushed a little. It's not done yet, he told them. Until I finish it, I don't want to say what it's about. Suddenly, it hit Gabriella. The way he was blushing, she was sure he'd written a poem about her. About them. Now she understood. He was too embarrassed to admit it in front of his friends. She could understand why he felt that way, but she couldn't wait to hear it. Okay, Gabriella said. Maybe we should try that visual exercise again. A loud knock on the door suddenly interrupted her. Hide, Chad cried. It's the press. End of chapter. So, are you thoroughly enticed to read on more? I think from the 3 chapters we can gather that they're probably gonna write their poems about basketball or something like that and interpolate what they know with what they don't know, and I think the winner will be maybe Troy or Taylor McKessie. But I will say they're kind of coming off as assholes in this story so far, sort of forcing Gabriella to help them and then not really being receptive to her help. Like, bruh, come on. But I am intrigued, so I'll read on and then leave this little book in the community library for any one of my Brisbane followers. Anyways, thank you so much for reading on with me of the High School Musical Stories from Isaiah Volume 3. And next relaxing reading shall be